The Wallabies have named their side for the first test, and none of their injury doubts have come through. I was half suspecting that there was some kind of smoke and mirrors in play, and then suddenly they would all suddenly turn up fit for the first test, but that is not the case. Hello, amateurs. Welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be here with you throughout the Lion series and beyond, so hit subscribe to follow along. So yes, this is the Wallabies squad to take on the Lions this coming Saturday. And I've already done one for the Lions selection, which I'll link just up there. Go and check that one out. There's definitely a few contentious decisions been made by Andy Farrell in most people's minds. But, you know, he's the man that's there. He's the man that sees everything. And, he's the man that's decision it is that is final. Okay, let's get into this Wallabies team, though. And first of all, with some squad updates. And I've got to say, just listening to Joe Schmidt in the press conference, I love the detail that he goes into. For example, he was talking about the fact that Will Skelton and Bobby Valentini are not going to be fit to play this week, but it was very, very close. And he went into the detail of the kind of exercise they're going to be doing this weekend. And it's basically 100%, full exertion, exercise in preparation, ready for next weekend. I like getting that kind of detail from the coaches. So that was great. He also mentioned with these two in particular that if this was the final game of the series and not the first game, then they might have potentially taken a gamble on them. So it is very, very close with those guys, but they both missed out, along with Valentini's replacement against Fiji, who is Lange Gleeson. So he's not available either. So, yeah, the Wallabies missing some players. Noah Lolosio obviously already ruled out. And then a big player for them in recent years, Taniela Tupou, just not really fitting on form as well. So the Wallabies missing some of their bigger names and bigger players. But overall, what do we think about them? Well, they're currently 8th in the world. And the world rankings really typically are pretty accurate of where teams are. And as I've said, they are missing some big players, but never, ever underestimate an Australian sports team, because they just have some kind of inner strength and pride. And I don't know exactly what it is, but they often find a way to compete when on paper it looks like they shouldn't be able to. Will we see that again this Saturday? I think we will. I think it's going to be quite a tight game in this first test. Okay, let's get into the selection. And maybe a little bit of a surprise right at the very top there with James Slipper getting the number 1 jersey. He wore it against Fiji recently, and he continues. Whereas, Angus Bell from the bench, phenomenal carrier for a prop. Well, for any player, to be honest, but a prop in particular. But Slipper brings with him a wealth of experience. He is 144 caps into his Wallaby career. That makes him the 4th most capped male player of all time. So, huge amount of experience. But throughout his Wallaby career, he has actually spent a fair amount of time on the bench as well. And he's played the other side of the scrum. He's played tight head a lot in test matches too. So he's got a lot going for him in that respect. How he's going to go up against Ty Furlong, I don't know. He's not an out-and-out dominant scrummager, that's for sure. He's not a real, he's not a typical South African prop, let's just put it that way. But he's got a lot about him, so we'll see. And Angus Bell will undoubtedly bring a huge amount of impact off the bench. Going through the rest of the forwards here, Matty Fazler played against these Lions already this tour. And there's a number of players actually in this 23 who have already played against the Lions this tour. Alan Alatoa is not one of them, but he is a big player for the Wallabies, missing during the last World Cup. And a very solid all-round performer. Strong scrummager, but again, wouldn't call him, genuinely elite in terms of international games. So it'll be interesting to see where the Lions can go after this scrum. Nick Frost and Jeremy Williams in the second row, and in for his debut, Nick Champion de Crespigny, who played for the Tars against the Lions, and it was him who had a little bit of a bust up with Henry Pollock. So it would have been amazing to have seen those two go at it again in this game. But Pollock obviously not selected for the Lions. When talking about Champion de Crespigny, Joe Schmidt said that, he gives a bit more of a line-out option, and his work around the pitch on the ground, just a bit more around the breakdown, is stronger than the people that he's replacing. But on the downside, he doesn't carry as heavily as somebody like Rob Valentini. And to be fair, nobody really does. That is his point of difference. So I'd be looking for some of the other players, people like Harry Wilson, who is a massive carrier for the Wallabies, to step up and, maybe do even more of that if that's possible. Fraser McWright and Harry Wilson make up the back row there, two very experienced and excellent competitors who will definitely be looking to slow the Lions down and carry the ball themselves in every opportunity. Into the backs, and they've paired Jake Gordon and Tom Liner. This is Tom Liner's first Wallaby start. He's had, I think, 3 caps off the bench already, and apparently he's just got a real quiet confidence about him, and I can't think of who that reminds me of with the same name. His dad was very much in that mold as well, and from what we're hearing, he's a chip off the old block in that regard. And Joe Schmidt talked about his quiet confidence spreading to the rest of the team. Everyone's just gone, oh yeah, no, he can do it, and all this kind of stuff. He's not a Barker, he's not an Owen Farrell, for example. So yeah, first start, huge game. Best of luck to him. Paired in the centre, Len Ikitau and Joseph Alkusu Sualii, a really dangerous partnership. Those two outstanding players. Don't forget, though, Sualii is still only 21, and according to his teammates, is really sort of just still bedding in to this Wallabies team. That being said, his debut against England last year was quite remarkable in terms of his interventions, in terms of his involvements. Like, he created a number of scores, and most importantly, his aerial game is up with the best the game's ever seen, potentially, in that first test, winning their own kickoffs, winning contestable kicks in the air all over the place. They didn't do that against Fiji recently, because I have no doubt Joe Schmidt is preparing a kicking game for the Lions, specifically for the Lions, and they didn't want to show it in that game against Fiji. The Wallabies back three is genuine class. They have got dangerous players all over the place. Jorgensen is absolute gas. Tom Wright is a wizard at fullback. He's a really exciting player. And Harry Potter, former Leicester Tiger, has had an outstanding season in Super Rugby as well. So when you're getting out to the 3 quarters, the Wallabies are not short of anything, to be honest. Onto the bench, and we got Billy Pollard, Angus Bello, I've already mentioned, and Tom Robertson. Tom Robertson, who also played against the Lions this tour, as did Tom Hooper. Carlo Desano didn't, but he's sort of had this big bust up with Tom Curry about some kind of disrespect thing. I'm not sure exactly what that is. Will Curry still be on the pitch by the time Tisano gets on there? Will there be a storyline there? Maybe, maybe not. Curry is quite often seen kind of limping off a pitch towards the end of the game after he's absolutely emptied himself for 50 or 60 minutes. Tate McDermott and Ben Donaldson providing halfback cover with Andrew Callaway, another man familiar to English audiences or British audiences after his time at Northampton Saints. So that's the Wallabies. Let's get into it. What do we think? Now, again, just listen to the coaches. Like, when asked about what was most important, how we saw the game going, Joe Schmidt went straight to set piece. It is the bedrock of all rugby, and international rugby even more so than that. But I suspect in the scrum, it might be tough for the Wallabies. I think their line-out will probably function okay. I think they've got good athletes there and a good set piece, but they might struggle with the scrum. So, and I've already mentioned this already as well, I think one of their best routes for getting territory and therefore the ability to play will be via these contestable kicks. I think you'll see setups where they'll play a phase or two and then get Sualii in a very advantageous position to run onto high contestable kicks and hopefully win the ball back for the Australians further down the pitch. And then from there, they will go for it. They will try and unleash these wider backs, because I think that is probably their best route to unlocking this Lions defence. Okay, that is what I think. What do you think? Do you think Joe Schmidt's picked the right team? Do you think tactically the things that I've spoken about, do you think that's the way these Wallabies are going to go? What do you think about the scrum? Do you think they might struggle there as I do? I think they might struggle a little bit at the scrum. Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll join you there for a friendly conversation. Give this video a thumbs up while you're down there if you don't mind. It helps other great rugby fans just like you find it. And you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next. And don't forget to get out and play.